I'd been excitedly waiting for a Toy Story 5 trailer to come out, but not because I thought it, or the movie overall for that matter, would be good, but rather because I thought it would be so bad that it would give me a lot to dig into. As much as I hated the Shrek 5 teaser, it was still really fun to tear apart, and on Thursday we finally got a Toy Story 5 trailer. And while the trailer wasn't quite as horrible as I expected, it was still pretty bad. Before we get into this, I'll say that these are all speculations based on the trailer and other knowledge. I don't claim to know what this movie will be like, these are just my thoughts going off of the information I currently have. I'll start by quickly giving my opinions on the previous Toy Story films, because opinions on the internet on some aspects of this franchise seem to be pretty split. How I'd rank all the films from best to worst is 2, 3, 1, 4, but the margin of quality between 1 and 4 is pretty big in my opinion. I love the original trilogy, and I don't think anyone would argue with me when I say that those hold up great. The fourth film is where opinions get split, and I am unfortunately on the negative end of that spectrum. I think it was unnecessary and kind of ruins the past films. The fact that Bonnie doesn't care about Woody both ignores the events of the third film and feels kind of disrespectful to the ending of Toy Story 3.
You think you can take care of him for me? Okay then.
Especially because she lost Woody after being given him and presumably never even noticed he was gone. He also very quickly decides to leave his friends, despite choosing to stay with them in Toy Story 3. But at the very least, the fourth film seems to have more of a reason to exist than Toy Story 5. So first of all, the scenes of a kid playing with the toys now look different. And I think this may be because every other Toy Story film has been known for improving upon the last one's animation and making it look even better. But honestly, Toy Story 4's animation is a bit hard to top, and the general consensus has kind of switched on what is seen as good animation. It used to be the more realistic it is, the better. But with the success of films like Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, people have been getting more of a preference for stylized animation. And it looks good, but while I'm not saying this for sure, it does kind of feel like they're just trying to replicate the recent success of other movies. This scene also introduces Karen Beverly, I guess that's her name, who, judging by the posters, her and this other character we only see for one scene will be prominent in this movie, along with the lily pad thing, which will very clearly be the villain. However, this trailer didn't show me much of these other two characters, so we'll have to wait and see if they're even super relevant to the plot. And on that subject, I think Toy Story is beginning to have a character problem. Every new film in the series has added more and more characters, to the point where Toy Story 4 couldn't really handle all of them. Between Andy's original toys, Bonnie's toys who were now part of the main cast, and that film's new characters, anyone who wasn't Woody, Bo Peep, or a new character got barely anything to do. Buzz had a subplot and Jessie got to pop a tire, but that's pretty much it. And with this movie also bringing in new characters, I feel that problem will only get worse. However, it does seem like characters like Bo Peep will barely be in this movie, which may help with the character problem, but all of Bonnie's toys plus the new characters is already a lot of characters. And this brings up a new problem, where Toy Story 4 feels kind of pointless now. Woody's back for this movie, and it looks like all his friends he was with in Toy Story 4 are not going to be involved with this movie's plot. So if the Toy Story series is going to keep on going, what did the fourth movie really change? Aside from the fact that Woody now has to travel to get there. But it's not like they're ever going to make a Toy Story movie without him. So if they make any new Toy Stories after this one, I'm assuming they'll just have Woody visit again. Also, I didn't find the ending of this trailer funny. This scene makes Buzz seem dumb, which despite the fourth film, he's not supposed to be dumb. And then Woody and Buzz are arguing, and they act like this is just a normal thing between them.
It's good to see them fighting again.
It sure
sure he is.
Which isn't true. They haven't really bickered like this since the first movie. And bringing it back just kind of feels like they're regressing their characters. Also, I'm going to tackle the issue that I think a lot of people thought of when the plot for this movie was first announced. This has the potential to feel like a movie written by a bunch of jaded old people, complaining about the dang kids these days always using their newfangled technology. But I could also see them trying to lessen that feeling by making the lily pad a villain who has a redemption. But I wouldn't like that either. Toy Story 4's villain, if you could even call her that, was lame. And Pixar's been doing these redeemable villains who aren't really villains or have just had no villain a lot in their more recent movies. And I kind of just want a good old-fashioned hateable villain again. Give me another Lotso.
Where's your kid now, Sheriff?
But Disney probably won't paint the iPad as an unredeemable villain, because then what if the kids don't want to watch Disney Plus or play Disney Magic Kingdoms on their mom's iPad anymore? And I know I've had a few complaints now where it just seems like I can't be pleased, because no matter what they do, it sounds like I won't like it. And that is because the plot and the idea of even making this movie are just not things I'm a fan of. And my biggest reason for that is because this film seems pointless in more ways than just being an unnecessary sequel, as it feels more pointless than Toy Story 4. It feels like this film won't be a Toy Story 2 or a Shrek 2 style sequel and will be more like Despicable Me 3. What I mean by that is that Toy Story 2 and Shrek 2 felt like they were expanding on a previous film, becoming valid parts of the stories of these characters. Despicable Me 3 felt like it was an episode of a long-running show, where instead of thinking of how to expand upon an aspect of the previous film, or bring the characters to a new place by the end of it, the thought process seemed to be more like, what wacky situation can we put the characters into now? And I feel like Toy Story 5 will suffer from that same feeling. Because who is the main character of the Toy Story series? Woody. Every single film follows his journey and has him ending up in a new place compared to where he was at the beginning of the film. In the first movie, he begins as the favorite toy and has a pretty big ego. However, by the end of the movie, he learns that he doesn't need to be the favorite toy and builds a friendship with Buzz, who began as his rival. In the second movie, he considers leaving Andy due to Stinky Pete making Woody realize that it won't last forever with Andy. But he turns down the chance to stay in a museum to instead stay with Andy, but still acknowledges that he knows it won't last forever, but is now able to accept that fact. And then in Toy Story 3, he has the option to go with Andy to college, but chooses to make a new kid happy and stay with his friends. And despite me not liking Toy Story 4, it at least changes Woody, as he decides to leave Bonnie and his friends behind and become a lost toy who helps other toys. I didn't think that was a great decision, but they at least made a change in the movie. But how is Woody gonna change in this movie? He either comes to Bonnie's house, helps Buzz, Jessie, and everyone else with their problems, and goes back with Bo Peep, making this film feel completely pointless, or he decides to come back and stay with Bonnie again, making the fourth film completely pointless. Pick your poison, movie, you'll die either way. But the thing is, I was looking at some of these posters for the movie, and if you look at these two, Woody isn't the center of either of them. Jessie is the center of this one, and Buzz is the center of this one. So part of me thinks the character growth is gonna be more centered on the other characters. But then, this isn't Toy Story 5. This is a Toy Story spin-off. These characters definitely had development in these films, but Woody was always the center of the plot and the one getting the most development. If you're gonna focus the movie on the development of Jessie or Buzz or Mr. Pricklepants or something, then why bring Woody back? And why call this Toy Story 5? Well, I do know why. The answer is money. They aren't gonna make as much money with a spin-off. We all saw that with how Lightyear crashed and burned. Well, I guess actually none of us saw that. That being the movie! But these decisions made purely for money spit in the face of the artistic value of the original Toy Story films, and the artistic value that the series used to have. And while Disney caring about money above all else is a widely known fact at this point, it's still sad to see how their great series turn into shells of their former selves, with soulless films designed just to make money.